Before starting today's video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video to encourage us to provide the best. I have a sister who is 5 years older than me. As far back as I can remember, she has struggled with addiction issues. In addition to that, her choice in men has been equally, if not more, problematic. At the age of 17, she moved out and began living with 3 other addicts in an apartment. One of them was a man in his 30s who had a history of dating young girls. Despite this, my sister fell deeply in love with him and moved in with him and his mother within a month of meeting him. Their relationship followed the same pattern as her previous ones. They would use drugs together. He would physically abuse her for taking more than her share, and then apologize and beg for her forgiveness. My sister would always go back to him, believing that his actions were her fault. Eventually, her ability to hold down a job became impaired by her drug use, while he refused to work due to some supposed ailment. His solution to their problem was for my sister to sell her body to get the substances they craved. It wasn't until he nearly beat her to death that my sister realized what kind of person he truly was. She returned home to our parents, who welcomed her with open arms. Thankfully, the experience of almost losing her life gave her the clarity she needed. She became determined to get clean and turn her life around for the better. After finally gaining enough strength, my sister's 4th stint in a 90-day rehab program was successful, and we were all pleased to see that she was taking her recovery seriously. Even after leaving the treatment facility, she continued to attend NA meetings and remained clean. She found a job as a secretary at a local doctor's office and stayed there for several years until she left to raise her first child. One of the biggest changes in her life was her newfound faith in God. She began attending a small Baptist church in the area and soon started volunteering there and in other church-run organizations on her days off. Since our family had never been religious, this choice seemed strange to us, but we were happy that she had found solace and security after all she had been through. About 6 months after her release from rehab, my sister met a handsome young man while volunteering at the church's food kitchen. He was also a volunteer there and a leader of another local church's choir. Despite her attraction to him, she had learned from her past mistakes and took things slow. This courtship lasted 2 years, during which he showed her how different he was from the other men in her past. When the time came and he asked for her hand in marriage, he made sure to get our father's approval. The family was thrilled that she had finally found a loving partner, and the wedding went beautifully. However, when they returned from their honeymoon a week later, something happened that shocked us all. On their first night in the hotel, they had an argument over her tipping the man who brought food to their room. He felt emasculated because she had not let him be the one to tip the man, but she saw it as no big deal. In an effort to de-escalate the situation, she apologized, but it only fueled his anger, leading to him slapping her. He immediately expressed remorse and blamed his behavior on jet lag. Despite accepting his apology, she knew that their marriage was over, as she had made a vow to herself years ago to never allow a man to take advantage of her love again. The divorce was filed the following week, and predictably, he spent his time begging for her forgiveness and asking her to return to him. Despite his pleas, she focused on moving forward with her life, until one Monday morning, when she left for work as usual. However, when her office called her home at noon, concerned that she hadn't shown up for work, they discovered she was missing. After an unanswered call to her phone, the family alerted the police, fearing that her ex-husband had abducted her or worse. 2 agonizingly slow days passed before the police finally found her alive, in a rundown cabin. After a passing motorist spotted her ex-husband's car, the state police raided the cabin and apprehended him, catching him off guard. When we reached the hospital, we could see that he had inflicted severe injuries upon her. Though we suspected that he had done much worse, we didn't dare to ask her to recount the ordeal. We were just grateful to have her back. The trial didn't take place for another year, but when it did, my sister displayed remarkable courage by testifying against her abuser. The jury ultimately found him guilty, and he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Despite the trauma she had endured, my sister was able to move forward and find a loving and lasting marriage. She has since been blessed with 2 beautiful nieces and hopes for more. Her new husband is a kind and selfless man who would do anything for her and their daughters. However, a shadow looms over their happy family. We recently learned that her ex-husband will be released on parole after serving only 12 years of his sentence. We hope that he has truly reformed himself and hasn't deceived the parole board. For the sake of my family and my sister, we pray that he is truly changed. I'm often referred to as old-fashioned, which means I prefer to do things the traditional way. For example, if I want coffee, I brew it in a coffee maker in my kitchen. When I need a new piece of clothing, I go to a men's store to make my purchase. If I want to read a new book, I go to a library or a local bookstore to borrow or buy it. Even though I know that ordering from Amazon would probably be cheaper, I prefer to support local businesses in my community. During a recent visit to my favorite bookstore, I was unable to find the book I was interested in. Fortunately, a woman named Rhonda helped me. She informed me that the book could only be ordered by special request. I gave her my information so that the book could be shipped to the store, and I could pick it up once it arrived. Rhonda and I flirted a bit, and we ended up agreeing to go on a date together. On Saturday, I took Rhonda to a large chain restaurant that served meat and potatoes, which I thought would suit her tastes. She enjoyed the meal and managed to finish her large entree easily, despite being a petite and thin woman. I was pleased to see that she felt comfortable being herself around me. After dinner, we had coffee and dessert and talked about our lives. When the conversation turned to her ex-boyfriend, Rhonda shared some basic details about how they met and why their relationship ended. According to her, they didn't share many interests and had only been together for a few weeks before he decided to break up with her via text message. Although we both agreed that this was a cowardly move, she didn't seem to take it seriously and instead told me about how she had taken revenge by poisoning his dog. As she recounted the story, I tried to mask my fear and disgust. After that encounter, I drove her home and silently hoped that I would never have to see her again. I couldn't help but imagine what she would do if I ended things with her after a short relationship. Fortunately, she didn't contact me for several days, and I tried to move on from the whole ordeal. However, the following Saturday, she began calling and leaving messages. Despite my attempts to ignore her, she continued to reach out with increasing desperation. By Friday evening, her messages had become more erratic and pleading, culminating in the statement that she thought we had made a connection and that I had broken her heart. While I know that this may sound cold, I have had my fair share of tumultuous relationships, and I did not want to get involved in another one. The last thing I wanted was to be caught up in yet another dangerous situation. I breathed a sigh of relief when I didn't hear from Rhonda after her last desperate message. Life returned to normal, and I tried to convince myself that she wasn't capable of doing anything too extreme, like breaking into my house and murdering me in my sleep. But my peace was short-lived. A few weeks later, I received a text message from her. It was short and to the point. "You forgot something." My heart sank as I realized that I had given her my address to ship the book that I had ordered from her. As I write this, I am asking for help from all of you who are reading my story. I don't care about the book. I am afraid that there is something much more serious going on here. Please, if anyone has any advice, I am desperate for help. To respect my aunt's privacy and the families involved, I will omit names and certain details of this story. Nonetheless, I feel a responsibility to remind people that the police are not always right. My mother's sister struggled with addiction throughout my childhood, but after conquering her problems, she became a cherished member of our family. However, before she could fully heal, she was the victim of a brutal crime. One night, while helping a friend locate a motel room, they were abducted and left for dead. My aunt managed to crawl to a main road for help, but her friend did not survive. She identified one of the men involved, and the police quickly caught him. However, due to her injuries, she was unable to provide many details about the second attacker. Despite the clear difficulty of one man abducting two young women, the police dismissed her claims as the ramblings of an irrational woman. She tirelessly worked to stay on the path to recovery and prevent the case from closing, continually providing the police with similar cases where witnesses identified two young men. Nevertheless, her efforts were futile, and the police remained convinced that her attacker acted alone. As the months passed, she lost hope that the second killer would ever be found. After Thanksgiving, our family turned its focus to Christmas and the joyous festivities it brings. My dad nominated me and a companion to pick up a Christmas present for my mom since he would be working out of town until the end of the month. As you can imagine, the Christmas shopping season was chaotic, but we managed to complete our mission a few days early. To celebrate, we decided to stop for some fancy coffee. Despite the light traffic, a car behind us began tailgating us and flashing its lights. When we reached an empty stretch of road, the driver pulled up next to us and started ramming the side of our car. It quickly became apparent that he was trying to force us off the road. At only 19 years old, I was terrified and had never experienced anything like it. Despite the second hit, I managed to keep control of the car. My aunt shouted that the man was the one who killed her friend and immediately dialed 911. It took a couple of minutes, but the highway patrol finally appeared, and we were only about 50 yards from a roadblock. The man trying to force us off the road slowed down and attempted to turn around, but another police car blocked him in. With nowhere to go, he surrendered. That Christmas was the best our family had ever experienced. The second killer ultimately accepted a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. Detectives later informed him that he could have gotten away with the crime had he not pursued us. My aunt has yet to receive an apology from the police department, but she is content knowing she was right when everyone else doubted her. Thank you for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and sharing it to support me. The best is yet to come.